Hi, can anyone hear Suhana Pramukh?
Anam, we can hear you.
Hey guys, is my voice jinxing? Hello everyone. Like, can you hear me?
All the best. Do well, everyone.
Likewise,
we are differentiating with respect to z. So it will be e minus a.
ಅದೇ ಏನ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಏನ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲ.
Hello. Hello, Gauri. ತುಂಬಾ ಡಲ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾನೆ. ಅವನಿಗೆ ಹುಷಾರಿಲ್ಲ.
Good morning, everyone. Greetings of the day. I am delighted to see these many participants for today's webinar. I hope all are staying home and staying safe. I am glad to welcome each one of you on behalf of Maharaja Institute of Technology, Mysore, an institution approved by AICTE and affiliated to BTU Belgavi. Our institution has been accredited to NBA New Delhi this year, and it's valid up to 2023-24. Today, we are hosting a webinar from IEEE Information Theory Society, the pride of Department of Information Science and Engineering. The mission of our department, as well as the college, is to empower students with indispensable knowledge through dedicated teaching and collaborative learning. It aims to facilitate entrepreneurial skills through effective institute industry collaboration among the students. With that note, I would like to welcome our esteemed guest, Mr. Jagesh Kolwala. We are excited to have you guiding us in today's webinar. I would also welcome our HOD, Dr. Sharat Kumar YH, our professors, my fellow students, and all other participants. Jagesh Kolwala is currently a student in IIM Ahmedabad. He completed his engineering in electrical from IIT Bombay. He spent a couple of years doing management consulting at BCG, the Boston Consulting Group. Being a 100 percentile scorer in 2018 CAT examination, he has mentored over 300 plus CAT aspirants. Along with being a mentor and a keynote speaker in various colleges, he enjoys teaching in NGOs. IEEE has always been a platform for students who have the thirst for knowledge. With the same agenda, we hope that today's webinar on management consulting roles and case studies can provide immense knowledge to our students. With the same excitement, let us seize the opportunity to gain as much knowledge possible from this webinar. Thank you. Now I call upon the expertise to proceed with the session. Thank you.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Anam, for the warm welcome. Um, and Yeah, so like as Anam mentioned, so today like we'll be discussing about management consulting and case study. So like I believe that I am in a good position to like explain these concepts to you and like describe this industry to you because I've spent a couple of years within the industry, spoken with a lot of people, seen the industry, so that has given me a lot of exposure and insights within the industry, which I am here to share with all of you all. So basically, all right. Yeah. So the way I would like to proceed about with this session is I'll introduce you to what is consulting and what is management consulting within that, and how our case studies solved, etc. And how our cases solved typically within like case studies solved within an interview and versus within your experience, like within a consulting firm. So that's what I'll be talking about today. And I would be glad to answer all of your questions. So feel free to maybe like put the questions in the chat box. Like I think one of you all can just monitor the chat and let me know, and just summarize the questions for me to answer. Also, like before I begin, I have a small request to all of you. Like, if you all could turn on the video, so like I feel that I'm speaking with an audience, and also would like the session to be more interactive, um, rather than being a monologue. So, with this, I will just share my screen. Okay, the host needs to give me permission to share the screen.
Yeah, sure, we'll provide it. Anam, can you please follow up on that? And I would request all the participants to please kindly go on with the video, like switch on your videos so that the expertise feel it comfortable to talk to you.
Yeah, I can now share the screen. Yeah, so is the screen visible to everyone? Can someone please confirm this?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
it is visible.
Yeah, sounds great. So basically, so one, as I told, we'll be talking about management consulting, and second about case solving. And the reason that I've written that it is an art more than a science, because there are a few frameworks, but at the end you have to be creative while solving a case. It is a mix of both art and science, but more of an art, I feel, while using your concepts from science maybe and analytical skills. Yeah. Just listing down the agenda for the day. So we'll be firstly talking about what is, sorry for the number notation over here. I think there's some technical issue happened with the number notation, but nonetheless, yeah. So firstly, we'll be talking what consulting is, what are the different types of consulting. Within that, what is a management consulting firm and what do they do? What are like typical projects within consulting firms? The key skills required by a management consultant, and like then how to like crack the interviews for these firms. And then at the end we'll have some Q&A rounds if time permits. So yeah, I'll try to keep this interaction as light as possible with a few light-hearted memes here and there. So yeah, so consulting, like there is a notion spread across that consulting is about giving advice to firms, and then it has both positive and negative connotations. That how will you advise a firm which is like so experienced within the industry, etc. But so I'll just throw some light over here. It is not just about giving advice. There is much more to consulting than that. So typically you help the client with the getting a lot of market information, both within the geography of the client and global. You bring some global insights for the client, from the knowledge that you possess within the consulting firm. Then like when a client provides you with a solution, provides you with a problem, he expects you to come up with a answer and a recommendation to the same. The client might provide you because he might seem that his team is probably not potential enough to like get a solution or a recommendation for the same. So going ahead, you also assess. So in addition to giving out strategy, these days clients have also become more demanding and ask for more of implementation work as well. They uh, yeah. So and like in addition to implementation, like when you like have are done with the project, you also help the client build skills, like the client employees to build the required skills so that they can continue to continue the good work. Yeah. So within the so there are like multiple types of consulting. Some of the key types would be management consulting and financial consulting. So management consulting, you have companies like um, the ones like McKinsey, BCG, and LK, etc. Within financial consulting, you have the big four firms and others, and there are like other types of niche consulting firms as well, which specialize in within a domain, and they would be like marketing, sales, social media consulting, IT consulting, legal consulting. So, for example, IT consulting, you have Capgemini, Accenture, etc. PR consulting, legal consulting. So these are the specializations or the boutique consulting firms, as they are called. So next, like a management consulting firm is basically a very broad and general term. They they basically help the client solve some of their key strategic and operational issues, and they do it across a lot of verticals. By verticals, I mean like we have a financial vertical, like you have banks and insurance companies within that vertical, or else you have the consumer goods vertical where you have all your FMCG players. So you have an industrial goods vertical where you have players like your steel manufacturers, cement manufacturers. then you also have something called, there are these private equity firms as well, and you help them do the due diligence for companies as well. Um, yeah, so these are some of the major verticals. Others include like healthcare, pharma, technology, media, energy, etc. Um, so these are the verticals that you cover. Like within these verticals, with there are firms, and like on what aspects do you help those firms out? So like these would be like majorly contributing, let's say, to the top line or the bottom line. So the top line is basically the revenues. So you will help them prepare, like help them accelerate their sales, prepare a GTM strategy for a new product, or they want to launch a new product, and you help them prepare the market entry strategy, or let's say you are helping them prepare a strategy for their firm for the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, etc. So these are basically more of revolving around your top line, and also on the bottom line. So you help them with like some of the cost reduction projects in their firms, or you might have things like organizational restructuring as well in a few cases, which helps them optimize costs and performance at the same time. So moving on, just a second. Yeah. Project will look like a problem statement being fluid. It's similar to the assignments, let's say, you have in your classes. Like, so this would be like a problem statement is floated by the client. The firms like do some initial analysis around that, the consulting firms, then they send a potential solution to them. The like if the client likes it, they decide to work with the firm, and then decide on the project strategy and the project timelines, and post that the consulting firm works on like preparing the strategy and then implementing it. So at an initial level, it might seem pretty overwhelming that there are so many industries basically, and like you don't have a lot of exposure to this industry. So how will you help the client solve their problems? So don't worry, like you are not typically alone. When you're working on these problems, you have a lot of resources at the back end that help you out. So those can be like, there are like industry expert teams within firms which have a lot of knowledge about the industry. So you can get in touch with them. They will help you get up to speed about the industry as a whole, and get you some specific nuances about the project that you're working on. There are a lot of analysts and industry reports around. You can get access to them and read those to get the required data. You
It is not audible. Can you please check the network connection? Hello, sorry to interrupt, but neither the screen is visible nor it is audible. So can you please check on that?
Yeah, sorry guys. I think there was some technical issue. Yeah, so is the screen visible now? Can someone please confirm that the screen is visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so like I hope you heard like around the various resources that I was mentioning that are there to help you like while you're working on your projects. So like moving on to the next part. So that's a quick, very quick overview of like how the team is structured. So basically, there are like analysts, associates, consultants who work at the bottom of the pyramid. Then you have like your project managers who basically oversee the entire project. So one more thing, like the analyst, associate, and consultant typically work on one module or one smaller problem of the entire larger piece. The managers typically the project managers oversee the working of all the modules, all the smaller problems of the larger problem, and are responsible for like communicating for the communication bridge between the team and the client. And like the partners are the ones who like oversee the entire project. They handle multiple projects at the same time, so their time is divided across projects. And they so like in addition to like overseeing the project, I think they are also responsible for bringing in new projects, etc. So they have a lot of connects within the industry and maintain good client relationship. So yeah, so now coming on to the very important part. So like, what do you need? What does it take to be a management consultant. So primarily, and at the very basic level, it's just two things like problem solving in a structured manner. So this is not, so there is no fancy science or art needed for this. It's like basic first principle problem solving, but following a structured approach. And second is effective written and oral communication. So typically, like written communication, you learn on the job itself, but oral communication, at least the basics and fluency in your speaking, ensuring that the other person understands what you are trying to convey, is something that is basically expected. Sorry, was someone trying to say something? Okay, all right. So moving ahead. So within like problem solving, I would just like to mention one more thing. So there's a very famous term you'll come across in problem solving and consulting, which is called MECE. So it's MECE, where ME stands for mutually exclusive and CE stands for collectively exhaustive. So you must have heard this a lot in Venn diagrams, probability, statistics, etc. So basically, like you have to break down your problems into smaller parts, and these smaller parts should be independent of each other, but together they should represent the entire problem. So the independence part is basically mutually exclusive, and together they represent the entire problem is collectively exhaustive. So yeah, so how to get into consulting? So it's only case interviews and case interviews, which form the major chunk of the interview process of consulting. And case interviews once again revolve around two things. So one is structured problem solving, and second is your communication, specifically oral communication. So next, how do you crack case interviews? Like, how do you crack case studies? Are they simple? Are they difficult? So just on a lighter note, so you could just have a look at these two photos that I have attached here. So basically, like consulting case studies are easy, but they need a lot of practice. You should have ideally solved at least about 20 to 30 case studies before giving a consulting case interview. The approach to solving case studies is not reading them, but you should ideally have a case group where like with like one of your friends, colleagues will be the interviewer. He will describe the case study and help you solve the case study, and you should be the interviewee and like depict it in an actual interview format so that you get a feel of the same, and like give your and then just reverse the position and like give another case study to your friend. So that's the way you should typically approach solving case interviews. So one very important part of that is of solving case studies is also like to ensure to give feedback to the other person. So the person who is the interviewer during the case study should give a feedback on how the other person has solved the case study and what are the major improvement points. And the interviewee should ensure that the next time you solve the case study, you should not repeat your mistakes, and that's the way you will get better at it over a period of time. Yeah, so okay, so like we have covered like basically like how should you be solving your how should you be approaching solving your case studies and cracking which are very essential for your case interviews. So now, so coming next, like what are the kinds of case studies that are typically asked within consulting interviews? So basically there are like 5 types of case studies. I feel this is a pretty exhaustive list amongst all the experiences that I have heard and my personal experience as well. But there are like typically 2 of them which are the most frequent ones. So running through, like, first is guesstimates. So guesstimates is basically like, for example, I've like mentioned an example, like estimate the market size of toys in India. So it can be anything. Estimate the market size of number of cars in India. Estimate the number of electric vehicles in India. So so those are the kind of guesstimates where it's so the approach over here should not be like you just throw a number towards the interviewer based on some past readings that you have had. Also, at the same time, you are not expected to know the actual number. What the interviewer is interested in is he or she wants to understand the approach that you take to solve this problem. So just for example, like if the question like estimate the market size of toys in India, so the approach that that would be typically recommended over here is like, let's say you divide the Indian population into urban population and rural population. Now within the urban and rural population, like divide them each of these into your higher income, middle income group and lower income group, and then like within each of these you need to understand like the number of children that are there in each of these income groups in both urban and rural areas, and then you can estimate that what is the number of toys that a kid within a high income group in an urban area will be buying, and so that can be so that can be like based just some experience or some number, but you have to explain the rationale for that. Like for example, a child in a higher income family in an urban area will be buying, let's say, at least a couple of toys or a couple of toys per month, or even more than that. Let's say about 5 toys a month would be spending about let's say 2 to 3,000 per month on toys. Whereas in a lower income group, that number would be significantly lesser, coming down to, let's say, even a 200, 300 rupees spent per month on toys, basically, or even lesser than that. So like you have to explain the approach that you're taking, and like when you're giving numbers, you have to explain the rationale for the same. And I think that's so basically, yeah. So like it's just two things that are checked over here. One is your approach, and second is how you're breaking down the problem into smaller parts. As you could see, like how I broke it down into smaller parts. So the next two, which are very common, are the profitability and market entry case studies. So profitability is the most common problem statement would be like a company is facing a decline in profits, and you have to identify the reason for the same and give recommendations. So I will cover the approach for this in the next slide. So we will go on to that. And the market entry could be like a company is wanting to enter a new market or is wanting to launch a new product. So like, what are your suggestions around the same? Once again, we'll be covering this in depth going ahead if time permits. The next is, let's say, a very unconventional case study, which are typically asked once you like clear the first 2-3 rounds of interviews, and then you are in your final stages. So they ask you such case studies to understand like how will you tackle a very unheard of problem. So for example, like it could be something like, so if you have written like that your interest is cricket in your resume, then they might ask you a question like, if you have, let's say, $80 million, which I understand is typically the IPL budget for each of the franchisees. So how would you go about forming your squad for the IPL? So it could be as, let's say, interesting and as interesting as that. And the last would be, so this is not like very, so this is not a very consulting focused case study, which is an investment case study, but more of it focused towards private equity and venture capital firms. So the common problem would be, would you invest in a company? And then you have to analyze both the, you have to analyze the market, you have to analyze the financial condition of the company, the other qualitative aspects of the company, like the product, the competition, let's say the management team of the firm, etc. And then like finally, like if these parameters are good, then will you actually so like, and you invest in the company, let's say, so do you have a realistic exit potential? That's the reason that you invest, right? So you put in money and you expect to double it, triple it, quadruple it over the next 1-2 years. So like, for that you need to have an exit potential. So is that possible? So will you get your money back with a good rate of return? So that would be around your investment case study. Yeah. So one more. So before the previous slide, we were talking about, let's say, how to approach your case study preparation. Then we talked about how your interview case studies will look like, and like hence how should you prepare for the same. And next, I would just like to briefly touch upon how the interview process is like, how are the interviews conducted, etc. So as we said, like before the interview, you need to prepare well, solve at least 20 to 20 plus case studies to get a good knack of it. At least 10 plus 10 plus case studies of both profitability and market entry is something that I would suggest. And secondly, like also understand the interviewer profile before the interview. And the reason is that so at the end of the interview, it is a norm that the interview will ask you to ask some questions, like we'll ask you if you have any questions for them or the firm. So here, like if you know about the firm, if you know about the interviewer, then you will be able to ask more pointed questions, which will also show that you are interested in the firm, you're interested in the role, etc. So that is some amount of background check and history that you need to do. Now during the interview, so like you can read through the first 3 points, but what I'll touch upon is like the main crux of the interview. So the interview is typically a very interactive experience. It is a dialogue between you and the interviewer. The interviewer is there to understand your approach towards the problem and not the final answer. She is not interested in the final answer in most of the cases. If you are on the right direction, they might just end the case even before it is completed, because you know that if your approach is right, you will reach the right answer. So it is very important for you to like speak out your approach while solving the case. And at the same time, so like as you saw in the previous on the previous slide, that the problem statement is very generic. Like for example, like how will the company improve their profits? So you don't know about the company, you don't know why the profits are declining, you don't know where the company operates, you don't know who the competitors are, you don't know who the customers are, you don't know anything about the company basically. So basically, like what you are expected and what you should also do is that initially just try to understand more about the company, about their product portfolio, about why the profits are declining, where they are operating, what is their objective, etc. And the information the interviewer will be happy to furnish the information. In fact, he is there for that. Like he is waiting for you to ask the right questions so that he can give you the appropriate information. So asking the right questions is another important aspect of the interview. And then also while going through the process, while going through the case study, you are also encouraged to ask any specific questions that you have. If you're making any assumptions, align them with the interviewer. So that's the process of the interview basically. Like you are expected to talk with the interviewer, align your assumptions, extract information out of them, and they also want to give you information, but they will give you only if you ask the questions to them. Next, so if you're stuck by chance in an interview, spend a couple of minutes, but avoid a very large amount of awkward silence within the interview. You can just request the interviewer to like align on the approach that you're taking, or ask or check like if there is any other approach that should be taken apart from the one that you are that you are on. So it might lose some points for you, but it will ensure that at least you go on with the next part of the case study. Like otherwise your interview is over then and there if you can't proceed ahead. So you can always like ask for their inputs while solving the case. And lastly, and a very important part of it is is summarizing the case study. So this is one of the most important aspects of the interview, and the interview will be judging you basis your summary that you give of the case study. So it is a very short 4-line statement. First line is laying down the problem statement. Second is laying down the problem. Is giving out the recommendations. So typically you would give out around 2 to 3 recommendations, and then fourth is like just ending it over there. So yeah, so this is like one of the most important aspects of the interview, and the interview will definitely judge you basis this. And like lastly, I've written, if you have any interesting questions for them, you should ask them, and you will be able to ask them only if you have done your background check of the company and the interviewer. Okay, so before I move on to like how to approach the case study, so I'll just maybe throw the floor open, like if anyone wants to ask any questions, etc. Also, like I'm seeing many of you haven't turned on their videos. Like, would be great to speak to people rather than black Zoom chats, I would say. So yeah, open to y'all. If you all have any questions, you can either raise your hand or type in the chat box. Okay, so there are no questions I see. Either I have presented so well that you all have understood everything, or maybe I presented so badly that you all haven't understood anything. Can I get some response, please? Or like, is it too early in the morning? All right. So let me move ahead in that case. So the next part is like I will try to touch upon like how to solve a case study. So the first case study that I'll be touching upon is solving a profitability case study. All right. So before I move on, I actually have a question. Thanks, Adrian. So the question is, what happens if your approach to a problem fails? Does the consultant face any consequences? Yeah, so very interesting question. Adrian, so basically, when you so the journey for a consultant would be, as I described, is one is that you firstly like prepare a strategy for how you're going to approach the module or the problem statement. You then align on that strategy with your internal stakeholders, like your project manager, your partner, and then also align it with the client. And if he's okay with it, and if that sounds good, you then go ahead and work and deep dive on that strategy. So in case like your approach fails, like your client does not understand your approach or doesn't like your approach, so it is like you have like found out the issue right in the very initial stages, rather than like deep diving into it and like spending and wasting a lot of time on it. So yes, so the answer to the first question is that you have found out the issue earlier, and then you can prepare a new approach, new strategy, and align it again, and hence like not wasting a lot of time on it. And the second, the answer to the second question, does the consultant face any consequences? Well, not directly, because there can be a multitude of approaches that a consultant can take, and it's it's the clients. So the clients also have typically a strategy in mind, like how do they want to approach the problem. So the clients are okay with that, then they proceed with it. If not, they will ask you to come up with another approach. but if it happens multiple times, then you might end up losing credibility. But that typically does not happen because your internal stakeholders, like your project managers and partners within your firm, are very well aware of how of what the client is expecting, and hence they generally guide you on the right path. So that does not happen, and I haven't seen that happening. So the next part, and so the next question I see is from Anam. What specific qualities is required for cracking a management interview? Yeah, so so I would say like as I had pointed out, like there's two basic things that the firm is looking for. One is your problem solving skills, and this is, as I mentioned, it's first principle problem solving. So you do not need to know the industry, you do not need to know the let's say the macroeconomic or the microeconomic situation in the country, etc. It's just basic problem solving that you need to understand. Like for example, let's say the costs of a firm are increasing, like a firm is incurring more costs, more expenses. Then you will try to break the cost into various aspects. There would be fixed cost, there would be a variable cost. Within the fixed cost, you will have like your rent and your other things. And within a variable cost, also you'll have a multitude of aspects along the value chain. So your value chain typically would be you're getting your raw materials, manufacturing, distribution, and then marketing and sales expenses. So now you have broken down the problems by problem statement into two ways, and now you'll analyze along each of these smaller buckets, like where exactly has the cost increased and why has it increased. So it's as simple as that. Like you have to break it down into smaller things and then analyze each of the smaller things to come up with a solution. And the second quality that I spoke about was communication. So oral communication, verbal communication. The firms expect you to be fluent in your communication, and expect that what you're trying to express, the message is being sent across to you, like to the other person, for example. So for example, the presentation that I gave, like I expect that the messages that I've been trying to give out, like you have understood those key messages that I've tried to give out. So that is the second aspect. And a third aspect, I would say, what the firms are also looking for is like that you want to take up responsibility, you want to take up ownership of your of the module or the problem statement that you're working on. So that might come up with, let's say you have been a manager at some of your internal college events, or you're representative of your class, etc. So some things that clearly show your responsibility skills. Okay. Sorry guys, I was just informed that my video had stopped, but am I audible? Can someone please confirm that I am audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, sir, you're
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So I just got a call from Pratham, one of your batchmates, that I was not, that my video had paused, but yeah, sounds good that I'm audible. Yeah, so like moving on, I see the next question is that how did you know that you wanted to do management consulting? So basically, I would say that I felt that I have been good as a problem solver. I like to solve the basic problems for I basically like to solve a lot of problems, basic problems related to the business, related to industry, etc. And that is where, like, after speaking to a lot of my seniors, sort of speaking to a lot of people within the management consulting industry, I gauged that I would like to try my hand and understand more about management consulting, and hence I decided to pursue it. And trust me, it has been a very good experience. I have enjoyed like solving problems for the clients, and at the same time, like, you're not just solving problems, once you have solved the problem, you're also bringing an impact for the for the client. A lot of times it would be monetary impact, a lot of times it would be a qualitative impact. So impact in various kinds, and that gives you a great deal of satisfaction at the end of the day. The next question I see is, how do you approach a problem which has very minimal raw data? Yes, so as I explained, like when the initial question is posed in front of you, it will not have any data. You are expected to ask the right questions, and the interviewer will give you the data. He is there to give you the data, and hence I said it is not a monologue. It is a dialogue between you and the interviewer. Okay, I am not referring to an interview problem. Sorry, I did not. Sorry, I did not understand in that case, like what the question exactly entails, because like without data, without information, there is hardly any problem that can be solved. Like today, the world revolves around data and information. Yep. So the next question is, is the interview really based on individual marks and academics, or purely talent, attitude, presence of mind, and answering capability? Okay, so like basically like for any interview, to get shortlisted for that interview, it is done basis basis your resume, and your resume should speak out that you have had like you have been successful in the past in, let's say, your academics, or some kind, or you've headed up or you've headed some kind of club or council within your college, or let's say you have done an internship, you have worked with a very good firm before and have received some good recommendations from them. So there has to be something which we call a spike on the resume for the for the firms to shortlist you for the interviews. I hope that answers the question. Yeah, so like moving on, I think we have about enough time for this particular page to be solved, like solving a profitability case study. Yeah. Yes, so I will help you with the links or book names basically to learn case studies. Just give me some time. Yeah, so a profitability case study is like, so firstly, as I mentioned, the problem statement would look like company ABC has witnessed a decline in profits, and you have to analyze and provide recommendations. So as I mentioned, the very first thing that has to be done is to ask the correct questions. You don't know anything about the company right now. So you have to ask the right questions, and these are typically called the preliminary questions. So what are those questions? So those questions would be like, how much have the profits declined? And since when have they been seeing this trend? Next, check the macro picture. Is this a company specific issue or an industry wide issue? Like, for example, during the COVID lockdown, every company had most of the companies would have faced a decrease in sales, a decrease in profits. So is it an industry wide issue, or like is it something very specific that the company itself has been facing? Only that company basically. And next is just understand more about the company, like where does the company stand in the value chain? What products does the company have? What geography does the company operate in? So like if you ask these questions, I believe that you will get a very good idea and initial understanding about the company. Going ahead next, so like once you have at least once you've got understanding about the company and where and about why and about like the profits, since when have they been declining, how have they been declining, etc. Now is the time to actually solve the case study. So over here, initially just take a couple of minutes, request for a couple of minutes to structure your approach. You write down your approach on a piece of paper and then start communicating with the interviewer. So once you've written down your approach, ensure that you align on the approach with the interviewer, and to make sure that you are going in the right direction. So what is the approach that you typically take over here? So there are like two parts to this, I would say. So one is like taking the quantitative method. So like you can write down profit as basically the number of units. So profit is basically revenue minus loss. revenue minus expenses. So your revenue would be number of units into price or per unit, and your expenses would be fixed cost plus variable cost. So the fixed cost is fixed cost, and your variable cost is like number of units into variable cost per unit. So that now you have your formula for profit. Now just check with the interviewer, like where is the issue? Like, has the number of units decreased? Has the variable cost increased? Or has the fixed cost increased? Or have been like, or are you like, or like, is there any change in the price? Have you been forced to reduce the price per unit, etc.? So you will get an initial understanding of what the issue is. Now, let's say in like a lot of cases, you will see that the number of units has decreased. So if that's the case, then you can probably write like a mathematical formula further for the number of units. So for example, it is, let's say, the volume of the fuel being used. So that can be described as, or that can be mathematically written as the distance traveled per hour into the number of hours traveled divided by the mileage. The next part, so segmentation. So basically try to understand like, so now next part is a qualitative aspect. So like the number of units has decreased, okay, but like segment it, like by geography, is it like across geography, or is it like for a particular product, or is it in a particular channel? So by channel, I would say it means online channel or a retail channel. And by customer segment, so like if you have a premium product and you have a economy product, so like premium product will be bought by your like a higher range customer, your economy product will be bought by a lower range customer. So where is the issue? So try to figure that out. And next, so like once you have understood that the number of units has decreased, identified key which segment has the issue been seen in, then utilize the value chain approach. So now look at like the entire value chain for the product. So like beginning from your raw materials and manufacturing, then going to a distribution push, then your retail push and your customer pull. So your retail push will basically include sales and marketing and any other retailer related issues. So then find out ki has like the manufacturing capacity or the manufacturing quantity itself decreased. If that is the case, then definitely the sales will decrease. Or like, is it the case that your distributor channels have been facing some issues? Your distributor is not being able to like push your products. Like for example, there's a manufacturing facility manufacturing, let's say, microwave ovens. And then like there is a distributor in between who sends it to the retailers, like the shops from which we buy. So if the distributor itself is not being able to send your ovens from your manufacturing facility to your retailer, then how will you be able to buy it? Then definitely the sales will decrease. The next thing can be retailer push. Like for example, you go to a shop and you're trying to buy an oven, but probably like they're not buying your, they are not interested, like they are not selling you that that microwave oven, or they are maybe pushing some other product, some other company's product, etc. So this can be the issue from the retailer side. Or it can be like something around marketing that that you are not aware. So that will also come under customer pull. Let's say, let's move on to customer pull. So there should be around sales and marketing, that you are not aware of the company, you're not aware of this particular brand, or maybe let's say the price, and the price is very huge, like versus other microwave ovens available, or the quality is not as good as the others available in the market. So that would be your customer pull issues. So now, like if you see this, like you have covered the entire value chain over here. So basically, like you are not bound now to miss out on any of the issues. And this will help you to like pinpoint exactly where the issue is, and also identify all the issues that are there. This is what we call as MECE. So it is exclusive and it is exhaustive at the same time. So now once you have identified what the issue is, the next part will be like synthesizing the problem, as I said, which is the summary. So you have to synthesize in like in a couple of lines. As I said, one is what is the problem, what was the problem statement. Second, what is the problem that the company is facing. and then you have to provide 3 very specific recommendations, which are high quality recommendations for what the company can do to improve this, to improve their profits. And then that will be the end of your case study. Yeah, so I would just like to take some questions over here. So I see like about websites to learn case studies. So there are a few books which are good. So there are okay, so there are like, if you just look at like case study books on Amazon, I think you will find you will find some very good case books. There are also videos by Vector Cheng available on the internet. He he has been an expert in consulting and provides good quality videos for beginners. So maybe that is also something that you can look at. And a couple of books that I remember at the top of my mind would be around Case in Point, Case Interviews Cracked. So you can refer to these books, they're really good. And Victor Cheng videos. I see there's another question. If a student was not able to do any internship projects, any extracurricular things which would develop his resume, but he was able to complete only his degree, does that student is eligible or having chance to get a job in company irrespective of packages? Yes, so like so there is a potential to get a job, but it might not be job in these companies, but it might not be a typical client facing role. It might be a back end role, where I had mentioned that there are a lot of teams looking in the back end to help you out, help the front end consultants in solving the problems. So those are, and these roles are very critical for the success of any consulting firm. So but so those roles will be open, but for a front end client facing roles, there are a few spikes or a few very good things that the companies need on your resume. Apart from the resume, what are the other prerequisites to reach the interview stage? So what I'm aware of is, one is resume is the most common route, but there are also a few competitions that I've heard being consulted by consulting, being floated and being conducted by consulting firms, and these help you get a direct, and if you perform well in these competitions, then they help you get a direct interview shortlist. So you can, for that, you can visit the web pages of these websites of these firms. You can follow their Instagram handles. You can follow them on LinkedIn. That's where they'll be posting information about these competitions and other stuff. Yeah, so I think maybe like the rest of the, so I wanted to also speak about market entry cases, which I'll take on in the next week. And also an investment case study, which again I'll take on in the next week. Yeah, so if there are any other questions, then we can take it up, or I think Anam had introduced the lecture, so maybe you can guide me, or you can guide the students about the next steps. Over to you, Anam.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like Pallavi to address the vote of thanks.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our speaker, Mr. Jagesh Golwala, for enlightening us with his knowledge. Today's session was full of knowledge and interesting things. It gave us deep insights into the topic and also revealed some interesting facts. I am certain that this session was really informative and will definitely help us in our studies and achieving our goals in the near future. We really appreciate you devoting time and energy to us. We would like to take a moment to acknowledge and honor all the hard work, diligence, and dedication you put in your work by supporting the industry with your vast knowledge and expertise. When I say this, I know that I'm saying it on behalf of everyone that we are looking forward to have you back with us again in future. Thank you again for addressing our students. We hope you had a great time too. I would extend my gratitude to our HOD, Dr. Sharad Kumar sir, and Supervisor Sumaya Siddiqui ma'am for supporting us in each and every way possible. I also thank our ISC department for guiding us through the event. I would like to thank the college in making it feasible for students to get access to such webinars. I also would like to thank our student coordinators who really worked hard to make this event successful. Also, thank you to all the students who have turned up in such great number and for paying your attention and learning. I hope you have enjoyed the session and we would wish to see you in the next session as well. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Pallavi.
I would request all the participants to please be the part of the session 2 webinar so that on the completion of the session 2, we'll be issuing the certificates for the same.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to our next session in the next week. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye. Have a good day to you too.
Thank you.